How you guys doing? Jimmy King with WrestleLaunch here with the Impact review. Impact starts. We are in New Orleans, Louisiana, which is directly after the Sacrifice pay-per-view. They're pretty much going to be there for a few days. Starts off with Santana in the ring, and he talks about Eddie Edwards attacking him, and they go over the Macklin bout about how Macklin was one of the toughest people that he has ever seen and has ever faced, and he rocked him, and he really did. He took Macklin down really hard. There will be a match between Eddie Edwards because of the Feast or Fired briefcase, where Eddie Edwards gets a shot at the World Championship because Santana is the TNA World Champion. And honestly, I really love that TNA World Championship belt. Edwards calls Rebellion the Knight of the System because he decides that he needs to interrupt Santana while he's talking. He claims that all the titles will become the Systems, and then Cedric Alexander takes the mic and they start calling out Leon Slater, stating that Slater has been ducking him. And of course, can't talk about anybody without them coming out in wrestling, so Leon Slater comes out, talks about how he hasn't been ducking him and he's been doing this and he beat him and how that was different is what Cedric Alexander says. And then Order 4 comes out and they talk a little bit about this and that. And then, of course, Trey Miguel comes out 10 minutes into the show and they've already got half of their roster that most people know out there. And then, of course, because I'm thinking that Moose comes out with Alicia Edwards. So then we have all these people, and then Santino comes out and says that they're going to have a match. It's going to be Santana, Miguel, Moose, and Leon Slater against Edwards, Alexander, Ali, and Agent Zero, or whatever his name is, from Order 4. And that's going to happen right now. They go to commercial, they come back, and that match is your usual party match. You don't know honestly how they do their tapings, but this would probably be a middle of the show taping, or so a match so that kind of keeps the crowd back into it, because when they do those tapings, there's usually a lot of matches that happen in quick succession, and then they do everything else in the other interim. This type of match, though, there was a couple of spot fests that would have driven Jim Cornette a little bit crazy, but if you ask me, it's good to include in that type of match, although a good 35 minutes of their 2-hour broadcast was taken up by this entire segment, if you include the match. But for the second week in a row, Eddie Edwards pins Mike Santana, and that is another story that they're kind of pushing a little bit, like I said, because Eddie Edwards does have that briefcase. They do move on to Daria Ray, who most people from WWE would know as Sonya Deville. She is currently known as the Suit in TNA. She has come up and she's kind of a neck and neck thing with Santino Marella, who is the director of authority in TNA, or something of that sort. He's still his normal Santino-ness, though. Daria Ray, Sonya Deville, she debuted with TNA during their AMC debut back in January, and she's been kind of the heel authority figure to Santino's face authority figure. They announced the main event. It's going to be a knockout world title match, which is their women's world title match. They also announced that there's going to be a women's bunkhouse match, which is going to be between Tessa Blanchard and Jody Threat. We then see a segment which will be Ricky Sosa coming in from back at Sacrifice, and of course Eric Young, who is just the old man yelling at clouds. He comes up and gets in Sosa's face and kind of just acts like Eric Young does. We then see the Hardys come out and they talk about being attacked by Dutch. He kind of teases the broken Matt Hardy gimmick because he goes again and again and again. And the crowd even gets into it, calling it, calling out the broken part. Matt does most of the talking. Jeff kind of tries to cut a promo, and you can kind of see after he even says parts of his promo, he can see a little bit that he's bothered by he didn't get that out as good as he could. Matt says something about apocalyptic consequences, and of course that prompts the Righteous to come out. The Righteous basically do their thing, saying that the reason why they attacked Matt was because it's their own good. It's how you have the offering and something of that sort. Basically, they want a match. They want a match with the Hardys for the tag titles, but they want a Hardy-style match. So, of course, Jeff says straight up, it's going to be for the titles. It's going to be a tag team tables match for the titles, and that'll be, I believe, next week. I didn't see if that was going to be a Rebellion pay-per-view, but yeah, I believe that'll be next week. At that point, we see Jody Threat coming out. They're talking about their match. Alicia Fox, I don't know what they're calling her now because I think she's going by her actual name, is with Tessa Blanchard at this point, and they actually have had a thing for the last couple of weeks where Rosemary has resurrected Allie, and she's been walking around in a white rabbit outfit, and Allie kind of abducts Alicia Fox at that point. And then, of course, Tessa Blanchard versus Jody Threat's bunkhouse match comes out. Tessa rocking the Magnum TA shirt. Threat makes her entrance, and Tessa charges up the ramp. Honestly, this is a typical bunkhouse match. Really good, actually. I am not a huge fan of Tessa Blanchard, but considering the fact that she is Tully Blanchard's daughter, and she is a stepdaughter of Megan T.A. She has definitely been in that realm. She knows bunkhouse matches. She's kind of been brought up in that whole vicinity, so I expected great things for the match, and she did fantastic, honestly. She ends up taking the ref's belt and using it as the way to get the win from Jody Threat, so she does get the win there. We then see Ryan Nemeth looking around backstage, and we see Brian Does Everything, the YouTuber, or BDE as they're calling him there, comes in there. It kind of looks like Ryan is in the process of trying to find who took out Nick Nemeth, because at the pay-per-view, Nick Nemeth was found in a pool of his own blood. Ryan blames BDE for attacking Nick, and then Frankie Kazarian walks in for some weird reason and then calls BDE STD for some reason too. That one kind of made me pop, not gonna lie. And then fucking Elias comes up out of nowhere, or Ezekiel, or whatever they're calling him now, and they kind of go back and forth some and basically say that BDE can just attack one of the Nemeths whenever they want. We then see AJ Francis taking on Cody Deaner, which is now known, or he is now known as the Hometown Man. It's kind of a El Generico, Sami Zayn kind of thing, where they act like they don't know it's Deaner, but it's Deaner. This was actually a relatively fun match. The Hometown Man is really over with the crowd. Deaner has been just running rampant with that one. He really enjoys himself, so they kind of acknowledge that it's Deaner, but it's not. Francis does get the win, though, and then he cuts a promo directly after the match, admitting that he was the one that took out Nick Nemeth. Ryan then comes out to try to make it like he's going to do something, and then he gets threatened by Francis, and that's about it. We then see Ariana Grace versus Xia Brookside, which is the women's championship match, or the Knockouts championship match, which is the main event. So this is the first time that the women have main evented AMC since they started back in January. Naturally, though, of course, Stax, because Stax and Ariana Grace are involved with one another, Stax gets involved in the match. At one point in time, Stax actually gets speared off of the ring apron by Layling Lee, I believe is her name. And then Grace, while the referee is figuring out what happened after all that, she uses the Knockouts Championship and she hits Xia Brookside with it, and she ends up getting the win because of that. While I don't know if Lee was trying to check on Xia Brookside or what was going on, but while she was checking on her, Grace made the indication that Stack should attack. While that happened, Santana came in for the save, and they go back and forth. And of course, for some reason, since Santana's out in the ring and he's got a microphone, Eddie Edwards has to come out in the crowd, and they go back and forth, and it's a weird little spot, because it almost looks like they're kind of like friends talking back and forth about their upcoming thing, and you can kind of see like a little, like, watery eyes for Edwards. Looks like he's about to cry, and then when Santana finishes his promo, he says, "Let's get it!" and you can hear his voice kind of crack, so that one again made me go, why are they crying? And then, even though that's technically the end of the show, we also see Tessa Blanchard walking through a backstage area, and then the camera pans to the Sinister Minister. Some of you know him as, also known as James Mitchell or Jim Mitchell, and he calls them in the Underrealm, and you can see Tessa Blanchard looks kind of, So, those of you out there that probably don't know, Impact is now on AMC on Thursday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central, so if you guys want to check that out, you're welcome to check that out as well and kind of watch them along with me, because I am trying to get back into TNA. I dropped them a long time ago, and with my favorites, the Hardys being there, I've gotten back into it. But that will be the last of my reviews for this week, unless people decide that they want to make requests for other ones. It will be a constant thing. Will be Dynamite, Collision, and Impact. Fortunately, though, it's going to just be a few other days where it's going to be Wednesday, Thursday, and then Saturday, because this week they decided to have 2 on Thursdays. But that's going to be it for me. Like I said, I am Jimmy King with WrestleLaunch. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment, and keep an eye on the channel for anything else that comes out from us, because we've also got the podcast and more reviews and everything else coming. Thank you guys very much for watching. Have a good day. Remember, stay safe, stay sane, stay healthy.